Let's begin our business of shaping policy for today by looking at the allegations of data breach as regards the activity of NIMC, that is National Identity Management Commission, as regards NIN numbers. There were allegations that some phishing websites have been engaging in compromising the data of the commission. The commission has also issued a statement in this regard to assure Nigerians that the data breach is nothing to go by. But the question is, where are the stories coming up from? And then what will be the impacts of this? Even though NIMC has warned Nigeria against the activities of this website, what has been the activities in recent time? And what does Nigeria need to do when it comes to being wary of the activities of these illegal websites? That will be the thrust of our conversation. For a background, it's important to let you know that some of these websites have been alleged to have been compromising the data of some Nigerians, as they have been collecting or allegedly collecting data from some unsuspecting Nigerians who probably presume they are working for NIMC. But before we bring in our guest, let me seek the opinion of Blessing, who is also in Nigeria. Now, the allegation started a few weeks ago, whereby there were fears as regards the activities of these illegal websites. We're going to mention them so that, because the essence of having this conversation is to draw the attention of the public to the activities of these websites or these illegal sites, what you call the phishing sites. Now, you discover that people unknowingly get on this website with the fact or the belief that they are legit and they are, disclosing some of their data information. And so some of these owners of these illegal websites have taken advantage of that to obtain some data. And that's why NIMC is issuing this kind of warnings to Nigeria to be wary of the activities of these websites. Unfortunately, these websites have done some of this damage, and then it's important this conversation takes place for Nigerians to know. Now, so far, about 107 million national identification numbers has been issued by NIMC. That's the commission in charge of this activity. And then it's quick to come up with a press release last week, debunking the rumor that the alleged data breach hasn't taken place, because there were concerns on the part of some Nigerians that, as regards the national database, if it has been compromised. But NIMC has assured Nigerians that nothing has happened to that. But it's also important for Nigerians to know these websites so that when you see them, you can avoid them. You're always a victim of what you don't know, which is why it's important for this conversation to take place for Nigerians to know the activities of this website. And it's so unfortunate that it's happening, out of every legit arrangement, these guys will always take advantage of it to fleece unsuspecting Nigerians, or people don't have the right information as regards the right website. So this is why this narrative is important. And if you look at some of these websites, we're going to talk about them. There are about 5 of them that have been identified.
Even the names of the websites,
Yeah.
It's good enough to sway anyone, to confuse people and make people feel they are genuine. For instance, there's one called anyverify.com. When you go to maybe an office or another agency and you present your national identity number and they want to verify. So for some, they may think, oh, this is an authorized site through which they can verify the national identity numbers of people. And so they go to such sites such as anyverify.com. The other ones that the National Identity Management Commission also listed are idfinder.com.ng.
Yeah.
There is also verify.ng/sign-in. And there's championtech.com.ng. There's trustyonline.com. Don't worry, just in case you didn't follow why I called the names of this website, it will scroll on the screen so you would see them and actually be very cautious when you encounter such addresses online, not to give your data. But like I was saying, it's very easy to confuse people with the names even of this website. And because of how relevant the name is to transactions, to completing forms, there are some forms that ask for your name. So you find that very often a lot of people have to release the name, and then the receiving agency or the receiving officers sometimes need to verify. And that's when the exposure sometimes takes place. But good enough now that NIMC is coming out to assure Nigerians that there've been no exposure as to the data collected by the NIMC and other data collecting agencies. They didn't even boast of the infrastructure that they have been up to date and conforming with stringent information management system standard. Well, that is really assuring. But I think beyond just warning Nigerians and beyond debunking the allegations, NIMC should also let people know how they can verify. Relevant authorities that need to verify NIN submitted. What is the site? How can they actually verify without using any of these unauthorized sites? Because this site came in because people didn't know how NIN could be verified. So I think that's another step that they should go. They should take rather, and letting people know how it can be verified.
You know, the issue is, in fairness to NIMC, I'm not trying to hold brief for them. You know, they've made that image on their website. You know, the directive is there on now. People can get this done. But I think these are people who understand the psyche of Nigerians and the behavioral pattern when it comes to things like this. And one thing that we must point attention to is the fact that people don't pay attention to details. You have a website saying, let's say, verify, like this one saying, idfinder.com.ng, you know, you should be suspecting, you know, that there's something fishing with this kind of website. Do you understand?
Just by the name, is there anything suspicious?
Yeah, yes, you can. You know, it's also good to be aware of these things, but likely because people don't pay attention to details. And then some of these messages, the way they are being coined as if they are trying to provide service,
yes,
to solve a problem. And so Nigeria just jump on these links, without even looking at, okay, the authenticity of the website. Some of these, you have .com.ng, that's to tell you, some of these domain or websites are registered in Nigeria. You understand? So it means some individuals have gone ahead to take advantage of the innocence of some people or lack of education of some people or not having the proper understanding of where to go to get this thing done. You always have this kind of vacuum, even if the NIMC is doing its best to ensure that the information is out there.
The fact that you just pointed out that there is a vacuum. And life does not allow for vacuum. It doesn't matter whether it's technology, something or someone will fill that space. So as long as the NIMC does not come out, does not make it a household knowledge that you cannot verify any national identity number outside of the National Identity Management Commission's website, people would take advantage of that to fool others.
So, which is why this conversation, they were quick to release that press statement that these sites are illegal data harvesters, because the discovery is that they've been engaging in harvesting data online to get people's NIN and to maybe access their data or to compromise their privacy. But it's also important, like you said, public awareness is it's key. But you also know that ignorance is not an excuse. Like I said, you always be a victim.
And it's very expensive.
A victim of what you don't know. These people became victims because they don't actually have the proper understanding, which is a challenge to NIMC as well, to take up this as a wake-up call to ensure that, like you said, make it an household thing. Even in different languages, you have different languages, you localize this kind of campaign that people will understand where to go to, what they need to do. I remember, the campaigns that resonate with us, even over the years, you discover that some of these campaigns are localized in local languages, in Pidgin, in Hausa, in Yoruba. So nothing stops NIMC from making use of the media or media tools, social media, to come up with advisories like this and materials that could inform Nigerians about what they need to do. Because as long as these things are not done properly, these guys will always take advantage. Don't forget, these guys too are always in that space to see what they can do and make business and even fleece unsuspecting Nigerians. But it's also important for Nigerians to also be wary of whatever information is being sent to you. Don't just share. Ensure you verify. There are instances you even make calls or you talk to. There are people you call stakeholders in your local environment. You have your local government chairman, you have your commissioners or people who are in government that you can reach out to and say,
You even
let's
have
find out.
offices of NIMC
Yes,
in various
across.
local governments that you could
Exactly.
just
So if
walk
it makes you
in.
to walk to any of these offices to find out, and if those information are actually true, then it's not too much. But because at the tip of your finger you can tap your phone and then you get things done. People don't go that length to verify to see what can be done to ensure that they don't fall victim. But that's why we're having this conversation. Our obligation is to shape policy and to see what can be done to ensure that the registration process is made better. You're aware that there's a process in place as regards the new national identity card, even though it's not new, but it's being rejigged in a way that it can serve multi-purpose, like a multi-purpose card, 3-in-1. And so it's also important that this is done timely. The timeliness is important because around this period, NIMC is coming up with a lot of activities that Nigerians will want to know. They'll be eager to know what it's all about. And the timeliness make it easier for people to get the right information at the nothing as better as when people get the right information
At the right
right time for them to take the right decision.
Oh, yes, because I can imagine the kind of damage that would happen when these sites are able to get sensitive data and the multi-purpose card has been issued. So it means that they have access to your bank account. They can make transactions on your behalf, unauthorized transactions on your behalf. So I think that it's very important people pay attention to the sites they avail sensitive information. And even when there are third parties through which you can register for the national identity number, you should be careful as well. I know that for some of them, they have this clear sign that shows that they are agents, authorized agents, but we also have different cyber cafes. We have different computer centers where a lot of registration, it could be JAM registration, it could be WIAC registration, it could also be registration for the national identity number done. But you should be careful. Make sure that the one that you are patronizing is actually authorized so you do not fall into the wrong hands. As they say in Lagos, enter one chance. To talk more on this, we're joined live on set by data analyst Seyi Akindeinde, who is the founder of Hyperspace and Neutral AI. Good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning, Seyi. Good to see you as well.
Good morning.
All right, so now that the NIMC has debunked the rumor making the rounds that data collected from Nigerians and India database has been compromised, I'm sure that some hearts are at peace now, like, okay, my information is safe. But they've also warned about some phishing sites. Could you tell us more about that and what Nigerians can do to protect their data?
Thank you for that question. Most times you see that because of the way the economy is, the way the country is, everybody's looking for one thing or the other. So it is very easy for someone to put up a phishing site and tell you, oh, okay, we're doing an interview, say for a job opportunity, and then in your attempt to look for that job, they will tell you you have to put in your information. And a lot of us, I mean, there are 200 million Nigerians. If you get only 1% of those people, you're going to have that kind of information. However, when I was actually looking at what happened in that case, what I think, because there is no way you would have that much information about Nigerians through just phishing alone. Because if you look at, I mean, prior to them taking those phishing sites, those sites down, I don't actually think those sites were phishing sites. I think those sites were actually put up by people who knew what they were doing. So they probably had insiders, because if you check the site, you would see that it didn't just have NIN, it had BVN, it had tax identification number, it had driver's license information, it had phone numbers. So I'm not sure that and then it also had information of top people, like, the minister and, some of these, important people. So what probably happened in that case, which from a little investigation, maybe as we go on, I'll just give some insights into what I probably think happened. And that some people had some internal collusions, because what would happen is there's usually someone inside who usually feeds information to some of these phishing sites. Now, one of the phishing sites that when I was reading the report or the NIMC, one of the sites they brought down was a site called anyverify.com.ng. Now, it's very easy for anybody to verify, who registered the site. So if you go to something like .net.ng and you put that domain there, it will give you the name of the person that registered, that website, the phone number, and the address they used. So from there, I think we can begin to see that it was done purposely, for that purpose. And if they tried to get that person who registered that domain, during the forensic investigation, they may be able to, pry more information out of that person. I think the person's name is, you can actually even verify it if you go to whois.net.ng. The person that registered it is called Imako Rede, with his phone number and with some address there. So I think, they can take it from there. But going further, obviously, Nigerians also have to protect themselves, And another thing you will see, which is why I sort of believe what the NIMC is also saying, is that there is no site on the internet. Before, when you were trying to do verification of your NIN, you'd have to put your NIN number itself, the number. Now, what they have now done in the new verification process is, because they know that that is a possibility, you don't put your NIN. What you put in there is sort of like a code that is not your NIN, but is somehow, they call it tokenization. So it's almost like if I ask you for your phone number, now instead of you giving me your phone number, you give me something that represents your phone number, such that I cannot derive your phone number from that thing, but it is tied to you. And another thing is that tokenization is also tied to something they call a merchant. So every partner of NIMC, all those partners that they have a code. So when you get your when you get your token from them, it's tied to them. So if anything happens, they can also trace it back to them. And another thing is that information, if you notice how it happened, they didn't steal in transit. They got the slip. That slip that you're giving at the beginning, when you're just registering. So it must have been from because even if somebody asks you for information and you put it online, you're not scanning your slip, that physical slip on there. You're probably putting NIN and BVN. But the way that thing was, they actually got it like from source. It's like when you get something, imagine when you go to school and you get your result from source and you get a physical copy. That's probably what happened. So the little investigation I did, I think is more, it has to do more with some kind of internal back-end collusion than, human beings themselves putting the information.
Now, why do you think, if you look at some of these phishing sites, why do you think it's been easier for them to take advantage of this vacuum? Then what do you notice about the pattern of the operations or the process or the tactics deployed in this kind of?
It is very easy. When there is hope, when there's desperation in the citizens of a country, there's usually loophole. That's why most times, apart from even the phishing, you find out that there's a lot of scam going on with financial, people telling you to put 1 naira here. So they take, it's more psychological because they know that people wake up looking for something to do. So if you sell them that, if you do this, but for you to do this, I need this information. So, and they do it in such a way that it is believable. So if you go to some of those websites, truly, even a lot of financial institutions are going through it, where somebody just wakes up and puts up a website of a bank, and then they start to ask you, and then they send you a message. They are doing a promo, and you have been enlisted as a winner. Now, what they do is they can tell you that, if your phone number ends with a 7, that you have won a prize. Now, the truth is, your phone number anybody's phone number can, if you throw that shot, there are multiple people that the net will catch, because your phone number can either end between 0 and 9. So there's always a chance. And when somebody sees it, you wake up in the morning, you've won, 2 million naira. But before you can claim this prize, you need to go to this website. You need to fill this information. You need to fill your BVN. You need to fill. The tendency is, if I send it to 10 million people, 10% of that 10 million people is 1 million. That's a lot of, information. So a lot of us, a lot of the citizens, a lot of the viewers need to be careful about where they put in this information, which is why the banks, even the, the NIMC and all these organizations will say, we will not ask you for where you need your NIN and BVN is for, that's why they call it's verification. It is not for authentication. you're not authenticating with it. You're not identifying. It's just for you to know that, okay, for you to do this service, we need to know that you are who you say you're. So it's just verifying at the back end. So they wouldn't ask you, for your PIN. They won't ask you for your details. So we need to collect. It's a tune that we need to continually, sing, and until that, and that's the advantage they take at this. So it's not really that they do anything sophisticated. It's just social engineering, which is, it's not just in Nigeria. It is all over. And of course, with this jackpot syndrome as well, now people are looking to jackpot. So anything related to that, embassy sends you something. Oh, but before you can fill in this, we need your passport details. And somebody who has a mindset of jackpot is not going to be thinking twice. Oh, maybe this is my opportunity. So all they need is my BVN, all they need is my NIN, and then they fill it in and all that. So that's what there are so many of those sites, and then some of those sites are assuming legitimacy because of the way, they're like all those sites that NIMC closed down. They all have .ng at the end, so they seem livable. They seem like they are partners to some of these government institutions. So that's probably what we need to do. We just need to be more cautious. We need to be more aware of where we are putting our information.
Talking about partners and looking at the way the information were gotten from your own investigation. Now, you talked about some of them not even coming from the NIN or from the site. They seem to have come from the hard copy of the slip. What do you think, or how do you think such slip were accessed? Does it come from maybe when people go to centers to make photocopy, when I don't know of any organization that would ask that you submit your NIN slip directly? What are some of the instances through which people could have given access to such people without even knowing?
Usually, a lot of those things, at the end of the day, if you trace it, it will be someone at the source. It's like, because even on the site, you will see even driver's license information, even the physical copy of your driver's license. Now, how do you get driver's license, the physical copy? For you to get it, it must have been printed from a source. Now, there's somebody in charge of that source. So when you go to the driver's license office and you want to collect your physical driver's license, they would print it out and then you go and laminate. Now, if someone there is compromised, if someone there has been given money to say, look, you have access to this information, give it to us, and they sort of entice him with some money. So a lot of these things are usually internal. They're usually, if you trace it, it might be someone who has access to it, who has said, okay, you know what, I'll give you access to this so you guys can, connect, because there is no way online. There is absolutely no way you and I can even get access to that physical copy. All you have is the electronic copy. When you download the app, the NIMC app, you see that's what you have, the electronic copy, not the physical copy. So for people to actually be selling, because what you see online in all those reports are physical copies of, so that means that they were stored somewhere and someone had access to it, and that's why I believe that this particular one was not through, phishing. So it must have been some internal collusion, maybe someone who is disgruntled, and it disgruntled. In fact, if you check it out, 90% of the fraud and issues, the security issues that happen in most organizations have an internal layer, because there is no way through which an external person, will do that. And like I said, if you go and check some of those websites that were brought down, and the good thing is the internet has a record. So those domain names like the anyverify.com.ng, if you go to the whois of that site, you will put in the domain name, you will see the name of the person that registered it. And obviously, for you to be hosting that kind of record, it means that you must know, because you are the administrator of the website. So if they query that person and question the person, then it will start to get, to the root cause of.
Is there a chance that people could register a domain name using a fake identity?
No, you can't, because you have to. You can't use a fake identity. You can't use. Yes, you can use a fake email. You can use a fake email, but at the end of the day, what they can do is, even the company that's registered, because they all have licenses through NERA, to register. If you go there, they will have details of the person, obviously, because the person will have made payments for the domain name. So when you trace, there are trails, audit trails that are left. So if, for instance, now you are a fake guy and you want to put up a fake site, you have to buy the domain name. And when you buy the domain name, you make payments. So obviously the payment will be tied to an account or a card. And if you trace it back, eventually, if you unravel, you will get to the source. It might take a while, but you will usually get, to the root cause. Even if the person is a foot soldier.
We're talking about the possibility of the phishing sites having access to some information without necessarily having access to the database of the NIMC. Please continue with that.
Okay, thank you very much. So an analogy I can use is, okay, so let's say you have an organization and you have staff. And then before recruiting them, you've asked them to bring in their physical CVs. And then you look at it and then you put it somewhere. Now, there's a chance that one day a cleaner may be sweeping, the HR room and see the stack of CVs, the physical copy, and then call someone and then they start to scan those CVs online. So essentially what could have happened would be the physical, because for you to get access to the paper, it means that somebody had access to the physical copy. This is now not electronic, because if you see the way the NIN form, what they were showing was the physical slip itself, as they will give it to you. So that means that there must have been someone who had access to it, who probably scanned it electronically and forwarded it to these people. So it made, like I said, what I think, it's still a presumption at this stage, or it's still all speculation, but what I think is that there must have been some internal knowledge, because there is no way someone is going to have, even if you have 2, 3, 10, we will say, okay, maybe, but when you have that many, and then with the caliber of people that you could see their NIN and BVN, then it obviously means that it must have been from the source. So maybe they need to take the investigation further, maybe third parties and all that. And obviously that's why even in information security, there's what they call data destruction. So when you have a physical copy, there's a way you destroy the data such that no other person will see. So maybe they need to start employing some of those kinds of technologies. And where I also think that this is more of a what you call it might be a ring, because if it was only BVN NIN that was compromised, then we'll say maybe it's a NIMC issue. But it was BVN, that was tax identification number. That's not the remit of NIMC. There was driver's license information. There were even phone numbers. Does that mean that they all come? I mean, if you are talking about that, that means that they probably compromised the entire country, which I think is, so it must have been something like that, and somebody was selling information to them from those internal organizations.
Now, let's get back to the statement released in this regard by the Commission. I'll offer you to listen. The Commission wishes to state that it offers NIN verification and other services through licensed partners. However, Experts Verify is not one of the Commission's licensed partner. Does that suggest to you there are third parties involved in this process? You have licensed partners. And if you have licensed partners, there's tendency you also have unlicensed partners who could take advantage of the system. Now that they have other people involved, could there be that tendency you have some third parties who are involved in this and may be allegedly compromised to do this? And then NIMC has also said they're investigating this. As an expert in this area, what kind of mechanism do you think can be deployed, or what kind of investigation should be done in this regard to be able to unravel this mystery?
Yes, they have licensed partners. And obviously, because if you look at the way NIMC is, they are the providers of this information. So they have...
So it means they are not absolutely not the only player in that chain of process.
No, they are not, because they need partners. So a lot of the partners are banks and fintechs, because if you want to open, say, and a lot of them are probably even things like embassies. So if you want to go to an embassy to obtain an interview date for a visa, when you're filling the form, they'll tell you to put in your NIN or your BVN. Now, the reason why they need that is they are partners to NIMC. They need to connect. So NIMC has given them a secure channel of communication. But you see, when you go, they are not requesting for you to bring your physical copy. They are only requesting for you to put in your, even the NIN you put. When you go, NIMC, they have an app whereby when you go in there, you can generate a virtual NIN. That virtual NIN is not your NIN directly. it is a virtual number. So when you generate it, now when you're generating it, that partner has a code. They call it merchant code or merchant ID, whereby, so if I generate my VIN through a particular merchant, it is tied to that merchant. So anywhere I use it, they can know that it was through this merchant, through this partner, that I generated that virtual name. So, and they did all that so that when there is a compromise, they can trace it back to, it's a bit like when you have a bank account. Every bank account, even if I have the same bank account number, but the fact that if I generate mine from bank A and yours from bank B, it ties it back to that particular bank, such that if there is a compromise, they can list it back to. That's why they put in that security. So compromising third parties, I am not sure this was what happened in this case. I think it has, because even the partners they have are digital partners. They are not it's not like they're giving you copies. They are more like, okay, you're a partner to us, we will give you secure, and then for you to even obtain that secure access, there's so many things that you must have fulfilled. You know, so many integration, security measures that you must have, and you must have tested and made sure that your network is, and it will even be at your loss if somebody compromises through you, because it will be easy for them to trace it back through you. So I'm not sure it was through. Perhaps there's somebody there who has registered an unlicensed, company without the knowledge of, NIMC, and then giving access to these third parties, or more like these third parties were buying, some of these things from internal people, because you cannot, in this kind of thing, to be honest, you cannot rule out an internal connivance. Because a lot of, I think there was a time we had at the beginning of this year, we had something around somebody hacking Microsoft, and you asked a question about, yes, there's always that, even at that level, that somebody is, because when you still, now, if let's say for phishing, what you often have is you have disparate information. You're like, okay, maybe they have 10 or 20 or 50. But when you have 100 million, that's not phishing again. Can 100 million people be phished? No. It means that somebody at the source gave out that information, and that's what we need to look at. 100 million people is not phishing. That's my own take. If it was 1 million, if it was even 2 million, but 100 million people, that's the entire, effectively. So unless, I think it must have been some and that's why they could sell it for 100 naira. Because if they didn't have that much, if you only have 10 or 20, that's why they could sell it for you, because they know that if you ask for 100 million times 100 naira, that's almost 10 billion. So that to them is why they were selling it for such a ridiculous amount that you could buy it for 100 naira, 190 naira, because they knew that they had so many. So I think it's at the source.
All right. Looking at this, the NIMC have said that I've warned Nigerians about phishing sites, and they've also debunked the allegation of data compromise. But given the scenario that you've painted and the possibilities that could have could have happened, what do you make of this at this point? Could it be a situation where the NIMC do not want Nigerians to be alarmed, but would carry on further investigations, but they just had to advise? And what would you recommend that they do in further securing the information of Nigerians? So if these sites, whether they're destroyed or not, already have this information, what can be done to ensure that this information is not used to further defraud people?
Thank you very much. Yes, the first part of the question is they may be, sort of like trying to calm the situation. Obviously, and I agree with them, because if it had been an electronic digital compromise, then that would have been because you would not know where that, where the source is. But this is a clear case of internal collusion. So it's almost as if, okay, this thing happened, and we know, and we are taking care of it. So you guys, nobody can use it and all that. And they've taken the sites down. Now, furthermore, now they can all those sites, Express Verify, AnyVeri, all those companies. The good thing about it is that they were using a website. And when you register a website, there is always something that you have to give when you pay for it. So I'm sure internally they will be doing their own investigation. They have a fraud an investigation unit within some of those. So they will be looking at all the traces, and they will be, in fact, what I probably could have suggested is just that they brought down the site. Now there are things that you can do when the site is up. So when, for instance, now there are processes you take instead of taking down the sites, like maybe they have done it, you can walk through the process. So if you want to buy an NIN. So you walk through the process. So in walking through the process online, you can see all the interactions that you're having with that website. You can see where the site is connecting to get that information. Maybe they have done that and they have actually identified the source or the server that is provided. Because obviously when you want to pay, because one of the things you see is when you log into that site, first of all, you see, it's even so bad that even people that were buying NINs from the site, they would ask you to put in your NIN number. And people will do it. So even in your buying it, do you understand what I'm saying? So they are still using that opportunity to collect information from you because they know, oh, you want to get the NIN of Mr. President, for instance. And then, okay, for you to buy this thing, put in your name, put in your email address, put in your phone number, then put in your NIN. And somebody who is hurrying to buy that will put all that information. And in doing so, it's almost as if they are validating what you're, and those are the ways they get, a lot of this information. So at the end of the day, I think humans, we as citizens, we also have that collective responsibility to say, look, unless I have initiated, nobody can send me a link and then tell me to put my NIN unless I have initiated. So if I am opening an account with a fintech and they ask me to put, and I'm sure that fintech, and obviously they will have, the secure site, make sure that you are not, logging into the fake site. Then when you put in your details, and people need to know that they don't ask for NIN. If you go well, there's an app, you generate a VNIN, they call it a virtual NIN. That virtual NIN, that's the way to protect yourself, so that, because there is nobody, if you give somebody a virtual NIN, you can't trace it back to the original NIN. And furthermore, those virtual NINs expire after 72 hours. So even if somebody were to steal it, it will be completely useless to that person. So it's like a one-time, use. And then it is also tied to the partner that generated it. So that's what a lot of people, maybe NIMC need to do a lot of awareness, sensitization, so that people will know that nobody's good. No, you should never have to put in your real NIN, even at an embassy. Even at the bank, they would ask you to put in your virtual name, and that you can generate. They have USSD codes for it. They have mobile apps for it. So that's what people need to do. But a lot of people, because they don't know, so it's easy for people to put in, and that was how I even knew that the site, that any verified, was fake, because nobody's going to ask you for your NIN. Once somebody asks you for an NIN, it automatically means that site is fake.
All right. I asked a question earlier, which is for you to give tips, as regards areas where you think they need to deploy this verification, because NIMC has assured Nigerians that these alleged illegal data harvesters are being investigated. But as an expert in this field, what are your recommendations? How should they go about the verification, and which areas should they channel towards?
Well, to be honest and to be fair to NIMC, they have put security in place, because that's one of the best security measures you can put in place. I even think it's a bit more secure than the BVN. And the reason why they did that was, if you look at how we were doing NIN verification before, we were putting in all the details. Now they have now done tokenization. Tokenizing means that there shouldn't be any, if I find a number, it shouldn't tie down back to you. Unlike with the bank, for instance, now where you have your PIN, you can't tokenize. The PIN is your PIN. If I have your PIN, that's it. So that's the way there. But I think what they need to do more than anything is to sensitize, speak it in Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, go to that. No, nobody's going to ask you for any. In fact, they should make it an offense that if any company is even asking you for your NIN, you see NIN, you should report. They should be able to report to, the consumer protection, that why is this company asking me for my NIN? Because even on the database, they don't store the NIN. Part of what we do in cybersecurity is we make sure that there is data in transit, there is data in storage, there is data in use. They are all encrypted. They are not physically open. Even the administrator, the person who is managing it on the back end, that's why it was easy to get the slip. Because if they had hacked into the database, if they had, all you will see is gibberish, encrypted data. So which is why, of course, NIMC will say they did not, this is not a database compromise. This is not a network compromise. This is more of some physical equipment. Somebody has access to a physical copy and they were able to, get it out.
Still talking about that access. So nobody should ask you for your NIN. But what about the person who prints out the copy for you as a third party, because at the point Nigerians were asked to go link their name and SIM together, because of the crowd, NIMC had to have some partners that were doing enrollment on behalf of the commission. So some of these partners can register you, and they can also print the slip for you. At that point, what happens to ensure that no partner, no agent at that point can use this information for fraudulent purpose?
Exactly. So they need to secure that end, because that's also an end where somebody can, use that information. But in this part, yes, it is a perfect example of well, in this situation where we read that there was 100 million NINs, it tells me, because no single partner will have up to probably how many, even a bank, I don't think there is any single bank in Nigeria that has 100 million customers. Maybe at most they have 20 million or 10 million, So for you to get that amount, it must mean that it came directly from a source. It came directly from maybe the guy who is sitting there, who's been compromised, and then it's just giving them, this information. And the way they were doing it willy-nilly, it simply means that they didn't go through yes, they can secure the partners, because the truth is, if you think about how you got your NIN slip, like for me, I got it through a partner that just said, okay, I will print it out for you, and you will send it via WhatsApp, and that kind of thing. That's how, my own mom too, she didn't have to go, the person brought it to the hand. Somehow you wonder, okay, this information that you're giving me, you must have gotten it, somehow. So they can also, sort of protect that end. And I'm sure what they do is when you print it out, maybe it has some kind of audit trail to know that this was the person who got access to it. Because I know from those partnership end, especially online, they have a code for each of the partners. So that code ties the thing back. So if, for instance, you hack, let's even say they hacked a partner, they were able to get it through a partner, it will be very easy for NIMC to actually know that it came through this partner, because anytime you generate that, they have a partner code that links back to them that they can see. But more importantly, we just have to be careful. Every one of us, we have that responsibility. Forget what anything. We have that responsibility as well to make sure that we're not putting in, and we're not so emergency, conscious that we would just put all our information willy-nilly like that into that place. So that's what I think we should do. But in this case, I'm sure they're doing their investigation, and I'm sure within this week, I'm sure we'll probably
now. Most importantly, why we had to bring this conversation is to educate Nigerians, and I would love you to do that quickly. Give advice on how they can identify typical phishing sites and what they need to do to be wary of this kind of site.
You see, the thing is that phishing sites are actually getting very sophisticated. You find out that they have moved from phishing to something else. In fact, most of them, what they're doing is redirection. So sometimes the sites you are actually going to, have you seen a situation where you want to log into a platform, that you already know, you check the URL, the name is correct, everything is correct. Now, when you put in your username and password and all these details, you will know that the password you put is correct. But somehow if you say, oh, password wrong. Now when you put it a second time, it now enters. What happened? What they have now started doing is they call it reverse proxy. So they set up something online, and then they send you a link, a very something that will cause you to click on that link. When you click on the link, like a bait. So once you click on that link looks original. So what they have done is when you click on that link, they've set up something that will redirect you to their site, but without you knowing, even though you are clicking the right address. So when you put it in, what you're doing is that first time they are harvesting your details. So it's getting so you have to be now what the advice we give now is, don't click on a link. If you want to go to a website, open your browser, type in the URL yourself. Just put it yourself. Or when you have to click on a link, what some institutions are doing now is when you put in your username, they send you a link to a password. But you initiated that. What typically happens is a lot of people you can be on your phone now and they will send you a link. Oh, and they do it a lot, even in advanced countries. So they will just tell you, oh, a parcel is coming for you from one of these parcel delivery companies. To get it, you click on. Once you click on that link, don't avoid clicking on links that you did not initiate. Every time you want to go to a particular website or a particular domain, make sure that you yourself typed it. Don't be too lazy to say, oh, this thing is. If you want to go to NIMC.org, type it in. Don't click on a link that somebody has sent to you because it could be phishing link. And when you go there, a lot of them too are getting sophisticated. So before, we used to tell people you should watch out for HTTPS, that's padlock key. But those people too are smart. You can buy, even for a fake site, you can buy certificates that will show you that you are secure and all that. They are even registering. I mean, if you look at Express Verify, it sounds very, posh. Any Verify, it sounds very. So they are already getting into the psyche. But the only thing the only advice I'll give is don't click on any link that you did not initiate. That's it.
Okay, it's better to do the work and keep your information safe than go through a supposedly easy route and then you find yourself in trouble. Thank you so much, Seyi Akindeinde, for being with us on the show today.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.